Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. There seems to be a bit of anticipation in the air for this session, which is great to see. So the next session is going to be hosted by Hull City Council and focuses on the emerging residential and commercial properties within Hull City Centre. Please welcome to the stage, they're already ready and waiting, our panellists, and I would like to introduce Chris Hume from Influential, who'll be chairing this session.
Thanks very much. Are we on? Are we? Hello. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Over the last decade, Hull has assembled a compelling series of investment propositions on brownfield sites in the city centre. There's lots of good things happening, from a city of culture that has a great future in areas like offshore wind, is well placed to build on an 800-year maritime heritage, and much more besides. So we're going to talk about how we've got to this point and where the city goes next in this session. I'll ask the panel to introduce themselves.
Good afternoon. My name's Jonathan Stubbs. I'm Development Director at Whiteland. Whiteland are a property development and investment business based in the centre of Hull, with most of our assets and development sites in Hull, East Riding and North Lincolnshire.
Good afternoon. Angela Blake. I'm the Assistant Director for Major Projects and Infrastructure at Hull City Council.
Hi everyone. Whoa, sorry, that's loud. Make sure you're all awake. Rafe Gale, I'm a Senior Development Manager at Muse, and Muse are a nationwide placemaker developer. And as you'll find out, we've been selected by the council as a preferred developer for the East Bank development scheme in Hull.
Great, thanks a lot. So let's start with the story of how Hull has changed its trajectory and getting to the point where, you know, National Geographic's picking it out as one of the coolest places to go. Jonathan, if we could start with you, from your perspective, how has this turnaround been achieved over the last 10 years?
Thank you. I think if you're looking back 10 years, I think one of the starting point for me was when Siemens made that decision to come into Hull and make a massive investment. I think they opened in December 2016. Obviously, there'd been a lot of planning before that, probably 5 years before that, but their arrival and opening of that facility was quickly followed by City of Culture 2017. There'll have been a lot of planning. The council really took that opportunity and invested in the public realm prior to the 2017, and then throughout 2017 there was a real feel-good factor around Hull. It had a story to tell at last. I think the community really got into 2017 and really ensured that any visitors had a great time. You know, the volunteer sector was really, really prominent throughout that. It gave the people of Hull a real pride, so they could then shout about the city in a really positive way that had perhaps been lacking before then. Then 2018, the arena opened, and again, another milestone for that, and bringing people into the city centre, which is key. Obviously, the COVID paused that momentum, as it did for a lot of town centres, but they've continued. The investment has continued with national highways, spending circa £500 million on the improvements to the A63, which have just concluded. That has been a real success, and it's done what it said on the tin, which not often happens with national highways in my experience, but it's been a great fillip for the city centre and access into it. And then just that continued investment that we've got a mayor in place, and I'm sure that there's going to be investments throughout the Hull and East Riding district once those schemes have given the all clear to progress. So really, there has been a great momentum in the city for the last 10 years, and obviously there's reasons to be optimistic that can continue.
Would you like to say a little bit about the schemes as well? I mean, obviously the fruit market's quite instrumental in what's followed, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Whiteland, Beale Homes and the council entered into a joint venture agreement to deliver the fruit market, which was a rundown area of Hull. It is now, 10 years later, it's a thriving, independent restaurant, retail, cafes, museums down Humber Street, but supported by 120 new houses in the city centre, but not high rise. They're low rise family housing and in young professionals and the Grey Pound as well. So it's a fantastic community, and it's really set the benchmark for Hull and what can be achieved going forward. Prices, the price point was at a new high for Hull City Centre, and obviously we hope that Muse will build on that with their scheme that will come forward in the near future.
Thank you. Angela, is there anything you'd like to say from your perspective on what's happened over the last decade?
Yeah, I think it's been a clear vision, a commitment, and that partnership investment and changing the narrative for Hull. What the opportunities in Hull, and really we've really built on that since City of Culture and the legacy of City Culture and the investments into the maritime assets in the city have really helped us raise the profile of actually what's Hull about and what is the opportunity in Hull around the cultural offer, but also that residential offer in the city centre, and how we want to create that vibrant city that people want to come and visit and people want to come and live in. And I think we've pushed that profile much harder since City of Culture, and that's seen the results that we've had from National Geographic and some of the other national press that we've been able to get those messages out.
Is it a pleasant surprise that City of Culture delivered so much? That could be a trigger for all the momentum that's followed.
I don't think it's a surprise. No, I think it's a plan. It gave us that platform to raise the profile and change that narrative of the city, and it created a really good platform. But it wasn't just about a year of investment. It's been about that ongoing, that future investment, and the new city centre vision that we've just launched talks about that next 10 years and what the opportunity is in Hull. So it's just carrying on with that investment and carrying on with that story around the opportunities of Hull and the wider Hull and East Riding area.
Yeah, Rafe, could we bring you in? ECF isn't an atypical developer, is it? It's interesting, and it does do in part work in parts of the country that it's considered quite difficult to regenerate. Could you tell us a bit about Hull from your perspective?
Yeah, of course. So for those of you who don't know, ECF is a vehicle made up of Muse, who I work for, L&G, and then Homes England. And so in that partnership, you've got a delivery partner in Muse, an investment partner in L&G, and then Homes England, the government's housing and regeneration body, which will obviously bring its own specialisms to it. So I think in the partnership, it's what was the phrase? It's the sum of the parts is greater than the whole, effectively. So together, there's a real sort of driving power behind ECF. I suppose your second question is why Hull was of interest. Well, one of the key things for ECF, or its raison d'etre, is that it gets involved in locations and schemes where the private sector's failed to bring it forward. So obviously on the East Bank scheme, well, not obviously, but for those of you who know it, on the East Bank scheme to the east of the River Hull, this scheme has laid vacant for 15 years or so, if not longer. And so we got to 2008 where a scheme called the Boom had just delivered phase one. Credit crunch came, and then that was mothballed, as that was in the case with many developments across the country. And so ever since then, no private development's been able to bring it forward. So proof of the delivery from private investors hasn't come to fruition. So that's really bread and butter for ECF to then get involved in. And so thankfully we went through the procurement process as one of the bidders and were selected by the council this time last year. Actually, we launched the announcement at UKREiiF.
Obviously, the V word gets mentioned in every session here. Is it harder in Hull because land remediation on these brownfield sites is inevitably going to be a bit complicated? Because there's so much history. On your site, is that an issue?
Certainly, yeah. I think any brownfield site across the country is going to have those problems. For us, we've got the river wall falling into the River Hull as part of the problem, and the remediation of the site. But in schemes across the country, remediation is a real drag on viability, which is why we have to turn to grant assistance effectively to plug that gap.
I think it's probably fair to say that viability is an issue around Hull, but that won't be specific to Hull, it would be Grimsby, wherever you go in these northern towns, there'll be a viability issue, whether you're bringing forward residential, office use, retail, whatever it is, there's viability, because ultimately it costs more to deliver than it's worth at the end of the day. So,
How key is partnership working to all this then, getting it done?
Absolutely critical. We need to work with partners, public and private sector partners, and the council's role is very much about setting that vision, being the enabler, bringing those partners on board, working with the partners from across the city, and with government in just, raising the profile of the opportunity so we can bring that investment on board, but also working with our public sector partners to influence strategy, influence investment decisions from government, to, so that they can understand some of the challenges that we've got in these northern cities, and how they can help us unlock the opportunities. But yeah, partnership is absolutely critical to that.
How easy is it to develop trust?
Yeah, I mean, well, it's the fundamental part of the partnership, isn't it? And so, I think you develop trust by having the hard conversations along with the good conversations, don't you? And on a 15-year development scheme like East Bank, for instance, in places like Hull, where, as Jonathan mentioned, there's viability issues, there are going to be some hard conversations, and so you're not going to move forward or deliver a scheme to a degree of success without having those hard conversations and developing that trust within partnership.
Is that from your experience as well?
yeah, trust is established also looking back at what you've done previously. So the partner that, whether it's the local authority or the mayor's office, has got confidence that if they are supporting you either through money or through a planning process, that you're going to actually deliver it. So looking back and seeing how people have performed in the past will establish that trust, and obviously that improves as you move forward. Muse have got a whole history back catalogue for 20 odd years of delivering similar schemes that they're looking for in Hull, and that gives everybody confidence that it will be delivered.
Is there anything we can say about bringing the trust from the community as well? Believing in your vision and that it's deliverable. How have you gone about that? How did you do that? How have you done that so far?
If I can take it from a strategic point of view, and Rafe will probably come in specifics on schemes, but it's about making sure you do that consultation and engagement up front. The city centre vision that we've adopted has been through quite extensive consultation, and then we do that again on individual schemes that we're bringing forward to make sure that we're delivering schemes that residents want to see, that fits the needs of our local residents, that is shaping the city and creating that vibrant city centre that the residents want to come into, as well as visitors and businesses to the area. So we do quite extensive consultation engagement. I think a lot of local authorities have moved quite a lot into that area now to make sure that we are working with our residents. It's important to our members to make sure that what they're talking to their constituents about, that we're actually making sure that that's seen within the projects that we're delivering in the city centre.
Have you got, presumably you work hard to ensure there's time to listen and react to what you're being told by the community when they're seeing proposals?
It's important when you go out to consultation that it is true consultation, that you can see that the changes in plans are actually reflecting what the feedback is from the community. I mean, sometimes you'll go out really early in that shaping stage, or you might go out with a concept idea and get the feedback on the concept idea. But I think it's important that you show that you're actually, you're being flexible and that you're adapting your plans and changing to meet the needs of the community. But also, it sometimes takes quite a long time for some of these projects to come to fruition and into delivery, and the needs of the community can change in that period. So it's making sure that you keep those touch points, and reflecting that change in your plans.
It cost us a couple of months, didn't it, taking on the consultation on board, going not back to the drawing board, but making finer tweaks. So when now the plan's been submitted for at least East Bank. They, when the public, if they want to go onto the planning portal, they can look at it. They can see those tweaks have changed. So yeah, it's and just going back to about it from my perspective, I think obviously Ange and the council have developed the city vision, and so we had to align to that, because you've got to come at it from a sort of a aligned position, one voice. So it was clear that, well, at least in East Bank's situation, it was aligned to the council's wider policy of delivery and the vision of what they're wanting to do over the next 20, 30 years.
What's the feeling? You know, your kind of evidence that investor interest is on the rise, isn't it? The fact that you're here and committed in a serious way for a long time. I mean, Jonathan, do you feel there's more people in the conversation now, more placemakers, if we can call them that, coming to town, wanting to get involved? There's
a positive feel around the city, which is reflected by people sort of looking beyond Leeds to the east side and seeing Hull as a potential opportunity. But they will face the same issues as we face up here. That ultimately there's a viability gap. So, you know, we can have a positive outlook on what's coming forward, but it needs support from the public sector, both from a planning, from a viability point, and also support from the community that we're delivering what's required in Hull, and that's better jobs. It's more prosperity for Hull, which will then circular economy be spent in the city centre, which will then be seen to increase the offer of the retail and the restaurant uses, and to the benefit of the whole community. That's obviously what the aim is.
Can we talk about connectivity then? Has the city felt like it's on the margins? The A63 has been being worked on for a while, hasn't it? Where are we up to with that? And is it going to is it a game changer?
Well, having driven up and down the A63 twice a day for the last 5 years in heavy traffic, wondered if it would ever come to an end, but it has done in the last month or so, and it has been a game changer for my journey. So for everybody else's as well. There used to be 5 or 6 sets of traffic lights throughout the centre of Hull. Stop, start, we were queuing 15, 20 minutes. That has all gone. It is now straight through. So it takes away the excuses people may have to not visit the city centre. So now, I can't be bothered to go into town to have that meal. I'll just go to the local. Now that excuse has been taken away, and we hope that the traders, the retailers, the restaurateurs will see the benefit of that, as well as the Port of Hull, which obviously is on the east side that travels through the city centre. I think it's going to be a long-term benefit for Hull, both from a prosperous port and also for the city centre as well.
I've spoken to people this morning while I've been walking around that have commented on the A63, and people that have said that we used to come into Hull to do our shopping, we used to come to to some of the entertainment venues and the museums, the Connections Arena on a weekend, but we stopped doing that because the journey into Hull was just so horrendous. And so I think the thing for us now is actually how do we turn that back around? How do we get those people that used to come into Hull for leisure reasons back into the city? And again, that's about getting the narrative right and the messaging out there that getting in and out the city now is so much easier now the A63 is open. And we're seeing, actually, there's been really positive feedback on social media, and we know that's where a lot of people pick up these messages. So that's doing part of that narrative for us. But we've still got quite a lot of roadworks going on in the city. We can't hide from that. We've got a lot of bridges that need investment, and we're trying to manage that in the best way we can. But it's essential works that need to be undertaken. And we're conscious that we need to keep that connectivity across the city and be able to get people back into the city and using the city centre.
What about rail connectivity? There's an enormous focus on the link between Manchester and Leeds. I can remember Andy Burnham, I think it was UKREiiF Year 2, was coming over on the train, and he actually tweeted, "Northern Powerhouse Rail, my arse," because he had to stand both ways. Is there an issue between Leeds and here, or is it fine?
Having made that journey, I don't think there's an issue. Yeah. I think there could be better connectivity in terms of more in frequency. So I certainly don't think there's a concern there, but you've got to balance it up with the driving force.
Yeah.
Who are you catering for there? Because there's plenty of people who make the journey from Hull to Leeds, but not necessarily the other way. And I think that's where we look to the industry and the reason why people would be making that journey. And then equally just building on the reason to make people live in Hull and then commute out. We've got to create that pull factor in terms of housing, which hopefully, Jonathan started it with the fruit markets, but East Bank will build on that.
So can we move on and talk about the opportunities and challenges of being a waterfront city in the Hull, in the case of Hull, because not everyone in this room is going to have been to Hull, aren't they? And they might think it's like Liverpool or London. Could you tell us a bit about how does it compare?
Yeah. Well, I like to think of it as it's got its own whole unique sort of grittiness because it's the River Hull. Well, it's a tidal river, so you can rock up there and it's full of water, looks really quite attractive, and then the next time you're there, it's just a big mud bath effectively. But I think that gives its own uniqueness and as I kind of call it grittiness. It's not going to be a shiny new quayside or the Liverpool or indeed London, but that's a completely different matter. But I think we've kind of got to celebrate what Hull has got in its own right, because it has, whether you like it or not, turned its back on the River Hull because of the industry that was there. So you had the River Hull and the city coming up to the west bank of the river, and then from there you had the warehouses, really high, tall buildings, right up against the side of the river. And that's effectively where the city stopped, isn't it? Across the river where East Bank is, we had an old Henrikian wall running there, which was the edge of the city. So it's sort of reimagining the city or the river and making people get connected back to the river, which Hull has historically always been very famous for doing.
You've actually done this, haven't you? Because I guess fruit market is a waterfront site, isn't it?
Yeah, the fruit market sits on the marina and makes the most of it. It provides an attractive environment. The public realm has just been completed and looks fantastic. The bars that run down Humber Street, they have external seating, and when the sun's shining, on the odd day it does, you can walk down there and both sides of the street are packed with diners and drinkers, and it has a real European feel. Not so much when the sun isn't shining and it's windy and rainy, but that doesn't often happen in Hull, so we're all right.
Angela, you've referenced the city's vision. Could we talk about that, unpack that a bit? What are the next steps in terms of commercial and residential?
Yeah, sure. So the city centre vision sets out the ambition for the city over the next 10, 20 years. It's quite a high-level concept document, so it throws all sorts of weird and wonderful ideas out there that are purpose to open conversations about actually what is the art of the possible, what can we do. So, it talks about vibrancy of the city centre and how do we create a more vibrant city centre. And it'll throw out challenges about Prince's Quay, which was the core retail of the city centre, that's now got some challenges around retail in the city centre and about how we repurpose that and how we bring that vibrancy back into the city. So it looks at the leisure offer, it looks at the residential offer. It focuses on some key development sites, East Bank's one, Albion Square that we've talked about in here this morning, where we've gone into early dialogue with Capital and Centric on delivering a residential-led scheme in the centre of the city. We've got other key sites around the Paragon site, which is at the back of the train station, which gives us a huge opportunity at working with the Hospital Trust on delivering, again, residential key worker development and services that will support the hospital on that site. We've got the Mitongate site, which is a gateway site into the city, next to the Connexins Live, so offers the opportunity, hotel developments that we've seen coming forward on that site. And then there's the Western Docklands site, which takes us right along the Humber Estuary riverside. So there's a lot of opportunity for development in there. What we've been really clear about is that City Centre Vision is a vision document. It's not a master plan. That it is out there start those conversations and look at the art of the possible and to look at the opportunities that we can create across the city centre.
I'm sure everyone here in previous UKREiiFs has heard people working in Regen talking about sort of Hunger Games scenario in terms of public sector, public funding becoming available. You know, pots would appear, and you have to have something pretty investable ready to go. Is that still the case, do you think? Has that ever been the case in Hull?
Well, from my side, yeah, we've as I said, it comes back to the viability point, and there's a big grant task for Hull in the 4 phases. But I think what Homes England and the new grant regime are doing, you know, taking a 10-year view at this, is we've been asked to look at a grant task that covers just the four phases for the whole entirety of the scheme. So I think that gives certainty of deliverability from investor point of view, that it's not just going to be delivered over one phase and then it might fall away like what happened at the boom back in 2008. But then you've got to look wider as well. You can't just turn to Homes England for all your grant assistance. So that's why we're engaged with the council and the combined authorities about how they can assist and get involved, whether it's, you know, grant or patient equity models.
Just to follow up on that, absolutely, you have to be ready. For example, we brought forward the hotel, as Angela said. We had an extant permission because we took down a listed building and rebuilt it elsewhere on site, and had a consent to put a hotel. We've now got an operator. We've now got an end user. So we've gone in for a Section 73 to make sure it's fit for purpose. The funding model is broken for hotels in northern cities. So you do need public intervention. I don't think there's been a hotel without that, excluding Leeds and Manchester, that hasn't been delivered with public sector funding somewhere and somehow delivered. But we're in for our Section 73. We're ready to go, and obviously we're just looking for that public sector support. But we're telling them we're shovel ready. We'll put Wykeland, we'll put our cash in there. We just need that viability gap making up. So yes, you do have to be ready, because they want to see something that they can cut the ribbon on in 2 years' time. Not wait 2 years to get through a planning process and sort out your end users, etc. So there's some upfront risk that has to be undertaken.
I suppose I was thinking more broadly, rather than Homes England or LUF funding and things like that. Are there still encouraging signs coming from government that they're prepared to support this sort of regeneration?
I think it helps having that clear vision and being able to, you know, set out the stall about what it is we want to deliver in Hull, because that's opened up the doors really to conversations with the combined authority, where we've been able to be quite clear in articulating what our priorities are and the areas where we'll be looking for investment over the next 5 to 10 years. We've been able to articulate to private sector investors what our priorities and our vision is. What we've found since we've launched the city centre vision is that people are actually knocking on our door more than us knocking on their door. So I've had conversations last week. We've sat on a panel with Homes England, where they're talking to us about these are the investments that we've got coming out that we might be able to help you deliver on some of your city centre vision. We've got private sector developers coming and saying we're really interested in some of the sites that you've got in your city centre vision. Can we come and talk to you about what we think we might be able to deliver on there, or what we think the opportunity might be? They're coming forward with different delivery models that we've maybe not tried in the past, that we're looking at and looking at what the opportunities are, and looking at how that's, learning from other areas and how they've delivered in other areas, and actually can that work in Hull? So it's really opened up lots of different ways and different types of investments that we can look at now.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say, is that probably just holding your hand out for cash is going to be probably not that well received. I think you've got to be flexible in your approach on how you ask and what's the potential give back to them, not only in the economic regen that your specific project might have, but actually what financial incentive may they have in the future that pays them back in some way, shape or form. So I think sort of having that open-mindedness to go and have those discussions with the council and the mayor's office is crucial.
I mean, perhaps back to partnership working, but is there more of a link now between Hull and East Yorkshire generally than there was 10 years ago? And you could get together a tighter strategic vision working together, which makes it easier to talk to government.
You're talking to somebody that's worked Humber-wide for such a long time, and I really struggle to sort of not see the Humber as an economic entity. But absolutely, I mean, the Hull and East Riding offers complement each other. So, I mean, we've obviously got the city offer, but East Riding's got the market towns, the rural offer. So it really does, you know, as an area, it's an area of huge opportunity, because for attracting people to the area to live or invest, you've got that wider offer. And so it's really important, actually, that we have that joint messaging about that wider offer of Hull and East Yorkshire.
Business is part of that, isn't it? You've got to be involved in creating the narrative and making the brand of Hull attractive.
You do, yeah. I mean, it's essential that you can offer everything to everybody. So you've got, as Angela said, you've got that city centre, the sort of the core economic area, but you've got the outlying villages and coastal towns. You've got the rolling hills and the countryside. So it's important that the message is sent that whilst the centre is Hull, the whole area should be, you know, in one marketing package that benefits people that are looking to invest in the area. I think one thing that, because Hull is such a tight political boundary, when they do the surveys, what you have is a tight urban centre, then you have the inner city housing, and then traditionally you get the suburban areas bleeding into the affluent villages. What Hull misses, because of its political boundary, is that the affluent villages. So whenever it scores badly on these national surveys, it's because of that political boundary. It's nothing to do with what actually goes on and what's spent in Hull and the actual affluence around the area. It's a geographical thing.
Rafe, so could you give us an update on the scheme and what's happened since you were here last year talking about it?
Yeah, so at East Bank, it has been a busy year. So we've completed the preparation of the hybrid application, submitted that on the 27th of March. So that is a detailed phase one, which will bring forward 115 homes, 78 of which will be later living flats, and then 37 townhouses alongside that. And phase one sits in the sort of centre of the site, and so it does a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of the public realm. The reinstatement of the river wall, which I mentioned earlier, is falling into the river. So yeah, we've submitted that, which included extensive public consultation, which we mentioned, and now we're out to the market on phase two. So we'd like to bring phase two forward ahead of programme, which is aligned to our collective vision, and also Homes England's and the combined authorities wish to see homes delivered within this Parliament. So as I said, we're out to the market, and that will be for 270 BTR units funded through institutional investors. So we're out to that institutional market now.
The fact that it's multi-generational is interesting, isn't it? Because a scheme like this elsewhere might be full of young accountants or something like that.
Quite possibly. But yeah, as I said, we've gone to the plus 55 later living, and we've got an RP in negotiations. We're in legals with them, heads of terms and all agreed. But this will be the first inner city site for them where they'll do flats outside of London. So you know they're a national RP. So that goes to show the confidence they've got in this, and effectively building on the good work that the council and developers like Jonathan have done historically. That they do have the confidence to come and invest in Hull, and they can also see the collective vision, which is clearly clear enough for them to grab hold of and get behind.
I think it's important to say that Hull doesn't have that indigenous professional sort of cohort. The students, the university is out of town with a campus of its own, so we don't have that critical mass of young people that you'd associate with city centre living. So, you know, the market has probably forced REiiF to go down that multi-generational, and it would also, probably the market wouldn't support another 400 units coming out elsewhere. It needs, all you'd do there is destroy your capital values and your rental values. So REiiF's scheme needs to bed in like the fruit market did, establish its own critical mass, and then move on to the next scheme. There's just not enough city centre livers to support, the tens of cranes that you see around Leeds and Manchester every time you visit.
And that's exactly why we're in a sort of 15-year partnership, isn't it? Because as Jonathan said, if we flooded the market, then it would just crash it. There wouldn't be that take up. So it's, phase one will provide proof of concept and give the phase two institutional investors the confidence to invest in there. And then it's really build on that over time, but certainly not rushing it.
Definitely don't want to put you on the spot about prices, but I think the average house price in Hull is about 180,000 at the moment. Nationally, it's somewhere like 260, 280. London's more like it's well over 500,000. So there's an attractive play there, isn't it? Come and have a nice life, settle, be on the coast.
There is, but then equally, the national or the average wage in Hull is lower than national. So it's all comparative, isn't it? But I think, we work on schemes across Yorkshire and North East. Well, certainly I do. And values are low. They're really quite low. We're going to speak to our colleagues down in London who are complaining about viability gaps when they're getting capital values of £1,000 a square foot sort of territory, and they kind of scratch their head at how they're getting viability gaps. But as I say, it's all relative to where you're working, isn't it?
Would you like to comment on that at all?
Yeah. You live here, don't you? No, Wetherby near Leeds. But prices are affordable in Hull. But you've got to have the reason. People don't just live in Hull because it's cheap to live in. They've got to have a reason to be there. So they've got to be the jobs. There's got to be the cultural offer. There's got to be places where you want to live. The places that bring you back into the town centre. You'll hear it numerous times. It's an ecosystem, and you've just got to get that ecosystem right. And Hull is working hard to do that, but it's they're competing with the 20, 30-year-olds that have got the choice of they can work anywhere in the world. You just have to be able to log on. So you've got to give them a real reason to be in Hull. That might be family, it might be cost of living, whatever it is. You've got to draw them in and then keep them there, and they can spread the word. They're the biggest marketeers that Hull have got. People living there, telling their friends and family that hey, it's all right, it's Hull.
Okay, let's move on. Let's talk about the commercial dynamics in the city, challenges and opportunities ahead. Angela, lots of towns and cities have a problem of the retail core is too big and there's too much secondary office space. How are you tackling that here?
So the retail it's struggling in every city, and it's consolidating into much smaller retail areas. We still continue to work to attract new retailers into the city, but we understand that the offer that they're looking for now is very different. So we've got retailers looking for much smaller units. And we're looking about how we can structure certain parts of the city in different ways to meet some of that change in retail demand, but also looking at alternative uses for that retail space, bringing more leisure into the city, whether that's cafe bars or whether it's entertainment venues or cultural offer, and looking at how we can reuse those spaces. The office market, we've got new office developments, we've got Grade A office developments in the city. It is challenging, and we've seen some of those challenges since COVID, where people started to work differently, more people working from home. We're seeing now more people coming back into the city to work. We've moved as a council in terms of how we work, so we've got more people coming back into the city to work now, and just looking at how sort of trying to keep up with that changing flow of office demand and making sure we're creating the right sort of places for people to come and work in the city, whether that's hot desking or creating hubs where people can just come and log down for the day and work. So it's just sort of changing being flexible and changing how we use some of those spaces to meet the change in demand, which we're seeing, transitioning really from COVID, but coming back into people wanting to be more based in the city centre and people wanting to work out of offices.
What's it like from your perspective, office and commercial?
From an office point of view, the office market is thin. There's very little movement from professional. It's the rents in Leeds are circa £50 a square foot. The rents in Hull are low to mid 20s, grade A stuff. So specs probably slightly less, but that differential, it creates the obvious. It's harking on about the viability, but it creates a viability issue. So we've targeted through our sister company C4DI the sort of the digital innovators, and it's a tech hub. It's about 25,000 square feet. That's more or less full, and that bleeds into a wider development that we've got called At the Dock, which is about 70,000 square feet, which was part funded by ERDF before we left, and that's 70,000 square feet of tech businesses that are working there, and it's successful, but it's the last new build offices that were done, and that they were completed 4 years ago, and as I say, with funding and support.
What about the city centre from an experiential point of view? You mentioned more arts and culture. There's a maritime museum, for example, opening this summer, isn't there? Can you talk a little bit about that and any other sort of cultural assets or fun things to do?
Yeah, sure. So there's been a £70 million investment into the maritime assets in the city. The Maritime Museum is a significant part of that. It's been completely refurbished, brought the building back to how it was originally. It looks fantastic, and I encourage everybody when it's open to come and visit. That will be open at the beginning of August, and totally revitalised the maritime offer. Putting all those assets back on display, but making room for more that people have not seen before. So it's a completely new offer, and it looks fantastic. Queen's Gardens, which we've been significant investment in Queen's Gardens. Part of that is open now. The rest of the gardens will open in a week's time. It's seeing people using that space in the morning. It's been done to a really great quality. It's provided a lovely green open space in the middle of the city centre where the kids are playing cricket in there at lunchtime that are coming out of the college. People are just walking around looking at the interpretation boards, looking at the history of what that dock was before it became a garden, and it's been really nice to see people using that space again. We've got the Arctic Corsair that'll be going into the dry dock, and that'll be moving in August, and that'll be her permanent home when she goes there. So she's been completely refurbished. We've got the visitor centre that's going to sit alongside there that tells her history, and just actually watching her move from where she is to go into the dry dock's going to be a real experience for a lot of people that can connect with the history, the fishing, heritage in the city centre. Jonathan talked about the public realm around the Humber Dock and the Spen Lightship, which opened a few weeks ago, and that that's opening up that space around the marina. So it's been a big investment. It's been a long time programme that's been development, but the end result is absolutely fantastic, and I think it'll really bring a lot of people to stay and use the city centre.
Okay, so we're drawing to a close. I have a few more questions, but we'll put it out to the audience in a sec if anybody would like to ask the panel a question. If we could just talk about the next year, what's coming up for Whiteland?
I guess our focus in Hull City Centre is the new hotel. It's, as I say, we've got all the pieces of the jigsaw in place. We'll get our planning, I'm sure, in the next couple of months. So we're ready to go. So we will be telling everybody and anybody that needs to hear it that we are ready, shovel ready, and want to crack on.
How about if we're back here in a year's time, what will we be saying has happened?
Well, I hope I'll be saying that we've been on site, delivered the enabling works, and we're on site with phase 1. And we've also secured forward funding for phase 2 as well. So a lot of work to do in that time. But I'm confident that we can get there, and hopefully I'm back here saying that.
Sorry, just looking ahead slightly beyond the year, that we invested in Whitefrigate, which was the old high street in Hull 10 years ago, housed M&S, Burton's, and all the other sort of fascias that you used to see. So we probably own 70% of one side of the street, and it's our intention to repurpose the M&S to make it fit for purpose. I think Angela said that retail units are too big. So the intention is to take down the back part of the building. It is listed in a conservation area, so it is not going to be an easy task. But I think everybody that knows Hull and is a stakeholder in Hull will appreciate that 60,000 square feet of retail on the old high street isn't going to let up anytime soon. So something needs to happen. But it's probably, it'll be a phased development. We'll create a development site for the rear to then bring forward at a later date when the market dictates is the right time. But obviously that's going to be a challenge ahead for the next year or so.
Is there anything you can pick out from the next year, Angela, that you're really hoping happens? Progress, big milestones?
I think the key things, one, we've talked about the maritime programme and the opening of there's key cultural offer. That's going to be great over the summer months. Albion Square will start to move forward, so we're in for planning at the moment for the demolition for the rest of the site, protecting the Three Ships mural. So we'll start to see work happening on a really core key city centre site that people have sort of been looking, saying, when's something going to happen? We've got the community diagnostic centre that's already open, so part of the site has been developed, so it'll be really critical for us now to see the rest of that site coming forward, because that'll really start to transform the core of the city centre.
Maybe if I ask that question a different way, what do you think would be the biggest news headline coming out of Hull Regeneration in the next 12 to 18 months?
New hotel opens next to the arena.
It's all going to be about partnership and all the things that, it very much around, what we're doing in partnership with our key stakeholders across the city, with the combined authority, and how about how we're taking that city centre vision forward to delivery.
I think we've spoken about momentum, haven't we, at the start? And I think it's just important that we keep that going. We've seen incremental improvements to the town centre through council investment and vision, and that just needs to continue, because if we sit on our laurels or don't continue, we'll just get overtaken by others that are.
Yeah, agreed. And I think just going back to the beginning of where we started, it's sort of acknowledging the fact that we are nearly 10 years on from City of Culture, and we've really got to motor on and just put foot on the gas now and keep momentum.
Is it a bit about keeping the faith then and trusting the vision? Because it's never going to be easy, regeneration, is it? It's not an easy thing to do, and it is inevitably long term, and people have to
yeah, absolutely. But with that, there's got to be flex, isn't there? When the markets change, you've got to move and adapt. And that's the whole, again, full circle back to the partnership point, that you're able to do that with your partners.
Okay. Would anyone like to ask our panel a question?
I think having a strong university presence in the city centre, I think would be the first item, is bringing the students in, because they have to come in to study, and I think that would be the first element. And then it's a challenging market, it's a student market, isn't it? Now it's you'll know the headwinds far better than I. So I think bringing students into the city centre to learn to start with, whether that leads to student living when there's already stuff on campus. I think that financial model is difficult in the current climates, but I think bringing people into the city centre for a day's learning, then they can bleed out into the city centre for lunch, and the odd student might have a drink on the way home. Who knows? But yeah, I think that would be a benefit.
Any more? Okay, we'll draw it to a close then. It just remains to thank our panel for sharing their insights and wisdom today. Thank you.